Boom! We are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to the Life as a Chad YouTube channel. And I thank all of you for being here, wherever you may be. And of course, however you may be listening. So, I was watching a Fresh and Fit clip, as I commonly do. And perhaps I'll do a more direct reaction video to this particular clip. And honestly, you see one clip. I've heard girls say this. You see one clip, you've seen them all, and perhaps there is some truth to that, especially with like the more after hours content. But this particular one sparked something in my mind that I have actually wanted to talk about for a while now. And the particular clip, like I said, I may react to it in the future, but it was, as Myron always does, he goes around the table and he asks girls what their minimum is. Oftentimes, minimum requirements. Oftentimes, he will put it into the female delusion calculator and let them know. And I think in this particular one, he had actually done it early in the show, but was asking them again a second time if seeing that had changed their minds on their standards. Basically seeing if they were willing to lower their standards. And of course, none of the girls were willing to lower their standards, and all of their standards were extremely high. And there was this particular girl who was from, I think Ethiopia is what Myron said. And in a nutshell, she, like I said, I probably will react to this more directly to the clip, but there's something else that I want to extremulate from this. And her response was insane. She was asked if she was going to lower her standards like all the other girls were. And she said no. And she said the reason why is because she doesn't think that her standards are actually that high. And of course, her standard, especially when it came to the financial value. And she actually said that she thought that the stats that Myron pulled up on the income, which is, by the way, extremely fucking easy to find and verify. I mean, it's not that easy, but it's fairly easy for somebody who is motivated enough to accumulate the stats that are reported by, census bureaus and the government and various entities. Plus, you can get salary ranges for various positions and the average. I mean, literally, if Indeed can get it, somebody else who is trying to get an average and median income would be able to get it as well. And I've shown you guys a website myself that I think is pretty accurate and awesome. It's awesome. And she said that she did not think that only 0.08% of men made over, it was either $750,000 or 100,000. I think it was 750,000. She did not believe that stat to be true. Now, that in and of itself is worthy of reacting to, the fact that these women commonly are so deluded that you will see in real time their ability to lie and manipulate reality in real time like that. Like it's very easy, and it happens very, very quickly. So anyway, so Myron goes on to say that of course it's accurate and it's easy enough to find. And she goes on to say that she doesn't think it's that hard to make $750,000, that if you just if you just work slightly hard, you could easily essentially make $750,000. And Therefore, her having that expectation or minimum qualification is not that absurd. Again, like I said, these women's ability to manipulate reality, and not only that, but then transfer accountability and responsibility to the men for her beliefs is astonishing for her qualifications. She's essentially putting the onus on men uh, as the reason why her qualifications are valid. So anyway, so it made me think about, and of course Myron goes in on her, and it made me think about. So on one hand, guys, watching these clips can be extremely disheartening. Okay. And I've told you guys in the past that you have to take these clips with a grain of salt because while they are at least partly representative, and I do agree with Myron that they have interviewed a lot of girls across a lot of different professions. At the end of the day, comparatively speaking, it is still a relatively small sample size. And on top of that, the type of woman who is willing to go on a podcast like that in general and the motivations behind why she goes on there are pretty commonplace within that type of woman. You know, you'll see it's either to promote OnlyFans or only stands, whatever the non YouTube algorithm word is. Um, you'll see that they're either trying to promote that they are like a stripper. 9 times out of 10, it's for promotion of some sort. You know, not all the girls have the only stands accounts, but some of them have businesses and are independent women, and they're still in some form trying to promote themselves. In other words, what I'm saying is that Myron, the Fresh and Fit do not get your run of the mill girl that's going to college, or run of the mill 25-year-old who's working at an office job. They don't get that type of person. There's a there's a profile of the type of women that they get. And so what I'm saying is that personally, I think it's partly representative, but I don't think it tells the entire picture. And the reason why I know this is because I live in the real world. I know what I see with my own eyes, and it's not representative. There are a lot of women, much more than Fresh and Fit or Myron is willing to give credit for, or red pill people. I don't want to put this all on Myron. That don't have those type of standards and do have relatively decent heads on their shoulders and are far more concerned um, with having someone rather than no one at all, that sort of stuff. So, nonetheless, I know that it can be disheartening, especially for the fellas, to see clips like that. You know, like holy shit, how am I ever going to measure up? It seems insurmountable. The mountain seems insurmountable. And I'm not going to turn this video into a you know, climb the mountain and get to the top, because while I would love for all of you guys to do that, at the end of the day, what I would rather say is just try your best. Just every single day, do your best, and the results will come. And as a Christian, now I'm not a Calvinist, but I do believe while we do have free will, that God does have a hand in our lives. And some of this has some preordained aspects to it. And, you know, uh, all you can do is your best. And what your best is and where you started compared to someone else's best and where they started are not the same. And looking around to have this kind of minimum where you have to get to, because comparatively you look around and say, well, that comparatively is a man who gets a lot of chicks, and therefore you have to make that type of money. That sort of stuff, I think, is futile. I think you are much better off focusing internally, taking it day by day, and doing your best, and let the chips fall where they may. But what I really wanted to discuss is, while it is depressing to see videos like that, I want to tell you guys that it's not the entire picture. When you watch a clip like that, it's easy to convince yourself that every single woman across the board is exactly like that, that every single woman has that sort of expectation, and all these therefore all of these women around are just like these women that are on the panels. And if they don't have insanely unrealistic expectations, they're these independent boss babes, and won't shut up, and this and that. And it just seems very demoralizing. And again, while a certain amount of that is true, it doesn't tell the entire picture. Okay. I'm not some liberal who thinks that it's all not true. There's definitely a lot of it that is accurate. But the real, more accurate picture, and I know this because I was in management, I've been in leadership positions, I know what the end of the road looks like and what the real picture looks like for the average woman. Okay. And I know Myron says oftentimes that the women on there are average women. I would still, most of them that are on the panel are not average. They're probably slightly above average, but they're not average. They're not your status quo woman. They're still probably slightly above average. I know what the real end of the road looks like. Okay. So, in one of the fields that I worked in, there were tons. So, in the field that I worked in, the common age range or age group that would work at our place of business were like above 50 years old. Okay. And I would say it did tend to be more women than men. And over half of the women that were employed there and had come through that place of business, that company that I was in management at, were divorced, and there was no end in sight. Okay. Um, and what I'm getting at is that while that sort of mindset may work for some women on the Fresh and Fit, and this is really what I'm trying to illustrate at large here. And I know that this is anecdotal, that's okay. But really, what I'm trying to illustrate here is that feminism is a lie. And and the worst lie of all, or the people who are hurt the most by it, are women, of course. Now, some of you guys are going to have zero sympathy for the women, because there's plenty of guys like you and me who are warning them against it, and okay, that's fair. But you got to understand, the society that they have lived in is so, the propaganda that is infiltrating their mind is so strong that it is nearly impossible for them not to become feminists. Okay. And ultimately, while it may work for some, as I said, and we see that snapshot into the very few that it does work, as I said at the beginning of the video, it is not completely representative. Okay. And just because you see it on Fresh and Fit doesn't mean that those women aren't lying, doesn't mean that they're not going to be a certain way when it's all said and done. There's many other variables at play. Okay. Oftentimes on these social media platforms and podcasts, people are not being completely honest. But let's just say that all of them are being honest. That is still a small snapshot of the entirety of the population that exists. And what I will say is feminism definitely has infiltrated the West. That is completely representative. But what is not completely representative is the end results. See, it doesn't always work the way you see it work on Fresh and Fit, meaning the success, if you want to call it that, and the solid lives that it looks like these women lead on Fresh and Fit is not as common as it may appear from watching them on a show like that. The more common, in my opinion, the more common end result of this feminist mindset and this feminist ideology is what I saw as a leader within these companies, which is they go through the ringer. They never learn to be soft and live within. They never learn to have their soft girl era. They never learn how to submit to a man and show a man respect. And essentially, they end up continuously going through this rigmarole where they treat their bosses and show more respect to their bosses at work than they do to their man at home. The actual end result of that is nearly a 70% clip of single and lonely by the time you're at the age of 60. Believe me, guys, I have fucking seen it. Okay, it is so. If you guys could see what I have seen, the how high of a clip it is for these women by the time they're 60 to be lonely and alone at the age of 60, you would not feel the way you do when you see these women go on Fresh and Fit, because when you see these women on Fresh and Fit, not only is it, like I've been saying, not completely representative, but these women are in their prime. A lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them. And a lot of them are above average with their looks. But that's not representative of the average woman. Okay. And the average woman who buys into this lie that is feminism, they go through the rigmarole, the fucking day after day of just bullshit in the workplace, only to end up getting divorced because they think that the problem is their man rather than themselves, and them not being submissive, them not being feminine, them not um being uh well, a lady, a woman. And they think they can find something better, but what they don't realize is, because again, this feminist lie has shielded them from the truth, is they're now older and they're now more used. And so their marketability on the job market is not nearly as good as it once was. I mean, I'm telling you guys, I have seen it so much, and it breaks my heart. On one hand, I get it. You know, it's like, well, you get what you deserve, sort of thing. But on the other, my normal masculine tendency that God has instilled within me is like, no, we got to show these women another way. We cannot allow this to keep happening. And I remember sometimes I would sit at work and I would like have like a tough discussion with like a 60-year-old woman that was one of our employees, or have to fire like a 62-year-old woman. Let me tell you guys a story. One, there was one woman who I had to fire for safety issues. Let's just say that. And her husband had died, And this her situation is not necessarily illustrative of the feminist problem, but it is illustrative of how the workplace does not give women the same satisfaction that it gives to men. Men are built for that. Men are built to work, to persevere, to work long hours and put in this sort of kind of consistent turmoil, this consistent drudgery day after day after day. And 2 weeks later, she died. She died of a well, she was a heavy smoker, so I believe it was probably like high blood pressure or blood clot. And I remember I thought to myself, like, man, dude, like this, they are not built for this. They do not. This is hell for them. This is not any fun to have to day after day go into the workplace. Now, I get it. Some women, because of the lack of money that goes around, even if they do have a man, they have to have a double second income for the household. That's fine. Now, it's not. I wouldn't say it is ideal, but it's not the end. It's not the end of the world. What is the end of the world is what is inside the woman, their feminine nature. Are they fighting against it, or are they working with it? Are they working with what God instilled within them to live in their soft energy and feminine energy and womanly nurturing energy? But the problem is that when these women go in the workplace, and like I said, I have seen it so many fucking times. I know it to be true. These women go into the workplace, and the consistent grind that a man would just make him stronger. The consistent grind, the day after day, dealing with the bullshit, dealing with the painstaking work. I remember listening to Gavin McInnes, one of his clips, saying that, men have to like verbally battle one another at work because they have to put food on the table for their kids. It's war, you know. That's no fun for women. And what happens is they go through it day after day, and more often than not, unfortunately, it hardens them. But if we had a society that was a Christian society and it had the morals, let's just say, hypothetically, feminism didn't exist. And instead, what was in place of it was Christian morals and Christian ideals. These women would have the constant backdrop of biblical teachings of what a woman is, which in the Bible is quite clear. And even if it wasn't, you would have church fathers to explain that and to consistently reinforce that. So, they go through this meat grinder and they get chewed up and they get fucking spat out. That's really what I'm saying. They get chewed up and they get spat the fuck out. Not only that, but they get fat. Okay, that's another side effect that you don't see on Fresh and Fit. For every, hot independent girl on Fresh and Fit, there's 20 other that are 20 pounds over obesity. I mean, guys, I'm telling you, I have seen it. Like, you know, it was like a 90% clip rate of these women in the workplace being obese, being fat. Okay. We're not talking like a little thick. We're talking like legitimately overweight. And again, the reason being is because they aren't built to go through the grinder like that. Maybe like part-time, maybe for a short time, but not for a long time. They are not built for that type of turmoil. Some women can do it, but most cannot. Most cannot. And these women, because they don't deal with stress very well, they end up eating their stress away. I mean, I'm telling you guys, I have seen some gargantuan fucking women in the workplace. Whereas me, and I'm not saying that all men are the same as me, but it's more likely to be this way than the other way. Me, I'm good to go. I'm fucking in shape. I go to work. It's no sweat, because I'm built to go through that. I'm built tough, bruh. You heard me? So, but all jokes aside, I mean, it is true. That's how God made us. And yes, there is above everything on my channel. What I want you guys to know is there is an order to this world, and it is God ordained. Okay. God has put it uh, into place. And when you realize that, everything starts to make sense. What exists out there in the world, what exists out there in secular society, is the opposite of God's ordained world. It is this consistent push against, rather than flowing and being a part of God's order. It's this consistent pushback against God's order. Even Satan is the opposite of what God is. You see right now in politics, everything is opposite the way that it should be. Why? Because in a secular society that is godless, it is within sinful nature and Satan's nature to push back and invert what is ordained. So I just wanted to let you guys know that and share that. And because, I think a lot of guys who watch those podcasts, as I do too, it's very easy to think that all these women are being super successful and, living super easy lives and life on easy mode. While I do agree that by and large women do live easier lives than men, I do agree with Myron on that. But I don't think what you see from the average woman on Fresh and Fit is representative of the actual experience of most women and what the end result looks like when it's all said and done. Because believe you me, I have seen the end result and it ain't pretty. All right, guys, like, comment, share, subscribe. You guys know the drill. Last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy with allowing facts or feelings, because your feelings just don't matter. Love you, kings. See you guys next time. Christ is king. Peace.